Like and subscribe and click the bell icon to get new video updates.
Incredibly, current climate pledges could keep heating below 2°C, but our work isn't over. The battle to get countries and companies to sign up to net zero is being won. Now let's keep pushing for more ambitious targets. The climate crisis is often seen in binary terms. Precise temperature targets, limiting global heating to 1.5°C or 2°C, imply decisive moments of victory or loss. Headlines warn that we have only 12 years to save the world. A recent study in the journal Nature showing that countries post-COP26 net zero pledges, if met, will probably keep global heating to below 2°C will be seen in similar terms. Governments and companies will claim we should be reassured by their decisive actions to reduce emissions. They will say we finally have a real agreement to keep heating below 2°C. We should be skeptical. As activists and scientists have said over and over again, targets are easy to set but hard to meet. And they are being promised by the same leaders who are already failing to meet existing commitments to reduce emissions. But to see this latest news in binary terms, either as a sign it'll be okay or another depressing lie, misses its deeper significance. There is no target, agreement or technology that can abruptly resolve the issue. Instead of ends, we should see these as means, signposts we can organize around, contest and weave into an ever-widening mobilisation of society that builds greater momentum for change. The news that countries' emissions targets could limit heating to within 2°C shows progress in a key area. 6 months ago, before COP26, targets were projected to result in 2.4°C of heating. In 2020, it was almost unimaginable that China and India would have net zero commitments a year later. Half a decade previously, those countries with climate targets were in the minority. Staying just below 2°C will still bring extreme suffering to hundreds of millions and risks abrupt, catastrophic changes to the environment. But that targets could limit heating to 2°C is relative progress. This progress shows that the battle for countries and companies to sign up to net zero is being won. Climate policies help spur rapid changes in energy markets, with renewables becoming increasingly competitive against fossil fuels, showing the world we have the technology to drive rapid emissions reductions. This momentum is the result of decades of cumulative awareness raising, tireless campaigning and political manoeuvring. The recent explosion in activism has been a crucial factor. It was equally hard to imagine global school strikes, Extinction Rebellion and a Green New Deal a few years ago. They changed the narrative, inspired by the successes and failures of those who came before. More stringent targets provide the basis from which to ratchet more momentum. If net zero targets are commonplace, demands move to the next level. The right kind of net zero cannot rely on the invention and deployment of vast carbon-sucking technologies by younger generations. The imperative for an immediate and drastic reduction in emissions must be enshrined in intermediate targets for this decade, and be met through huge investment in the deployment of renewables and energy efficiency measures. In the Global South, 2°C-compatible pledges can only be realized if the wealthiest nations stop failing to meet their promise of $100 billion a year in support. The next wave of demands brings new campaigns, leaders and means of making change. Already, school strikers are graduating into taking governments to court. Civil disobedience is being brought to thinktanks, airfields for private jets and other low-profile enablers of climate catastrophe. It is exciting to think what the next wave will look like. How the millions of people who have been reached by IPCC headlines, Insulate Britain and the other events of recent years could be inspired. A huge amount hinges on this next wave. The stakes are vertiginous. Focus must increasingly turn to other battles. Millions of homes need insulating, an even greater necessity considering Russia's war in Ukraine and inflation. The efforts of Nigel Farage and others to use the well-honed Brexit playbook to create a kind of fossil populism encouraging delay and distraction must be rebuffed. The growing taboo over fossil fuel companies must spread to their financiers and media cheerleaders. The targets agreed at COP26 don't guarantee our success. But they will be referenced, debated and used as leverage or a yardstick across the many fronts of the climate movement, from activist circles to business and government boardrooms. They are a small success that contributes to a larger process of leveraging deeper change. Avoiding global catastrophe and limiting the increasingly severe effects of the climate crisis was always going to be a long, brutal struggle. This is because it requires fundamental changes to societies everywhere. Crucially, these can,